The cook. Nobody wanted to hire, changed a bachelor millionaire's life forever. Jessica Miller held tightly to the worn-out purse handle as she walked through the mansion's gate, carrying the weight of 27 consecutive rejections and a 6-month belly that most employers considered a problem. Businessman Benjamin Harrison had just fired his 5th cook in 3 months, and the employment agency warned him it would be nearly impossible to find someone willing to work for him. That's when she showed up at the gatehouse, explaining she had seen the ad in the newspaper and was willing to start immediately. Benjamin barely looked at her during the quick interview, concerned only with solving the urgent problem of food for the next evening's business meeting. "I need someone who knows how to cook real food, not that fancy stuff everyone wants to make here," he said, without taking his eyes off the papers on the desk. "I know how to make home-cooked meals, Mr. Harrison. Food that feeds the soul," replied Jessica, discreetly adjusting her apron over her belly. "You can start early tomorrow morning. Mrs. Margaret from administration will explain the house rules." Benjamin didn't notice her sigh of relief, nor did he notice how her eyes shone when he mentioned food that feeds the soul. There was a very specific reason why Jessica had sought work in that particular house, a reason she wasn't yet ready to reveal. On her first day of work, Jessica arrived 2 hours before the agreed time. While exploring the impeccable modern kitchen, her hands trembled slightly as she recognized some old utensils that contrasted with the new equipment: a wooden spoon with a peeling handle, a black cast-iron pot, a well-used rolling pin. "He kept everything," she murmured to herself, running her fingers over the wooden spoon. Mrs. Margaret, a 60-year-old lady who had managed the house for decades, watched Jessica with curiosity. "Mr. Benjamin doesn't like changes in the kitchen. These things belong to the previous cook. Well, the one before that. Mrs. Eleanor worked here for over 20 years. "Eleanor Jenkins?" asked Jessica, trying to control the emotion in her voice. "Did you know her? She was a saint of a person. Took care of young Benjamin since he was little. It's a shame that—" Mrs. Margaret stopped speaking abruptly, as if she had said something she shouldn't have. "That what?" insisted Jessica. "Nothing, dear. You better focus on your work. Mr. Benjamin is very particular about food. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing." Jessica spent the morning planning the menu, but her mind was divided between recipes and the memories that kitchen awakened. When lunchtime came, she prepared a simple dish: chicken stew with okra, fluffy rice, and bacon faroffa. It was a recipe she knew by heart, one she hadn't made in many years. Benjamin came down for lunch with his usual hurry, expecting to eat quickly before returning to meetings. But when the first fork touched his lips, he stopped completely. The next movement was slower, as if he was savoring every fiber of the meat, every grain of rice. "Who taught you this recipe?" he asked suddenly, with a strangeness in his voice that Jessica couldn't decipher. "A family friend," she replied, watching his reaction carefully. Benjamin finished the plate in absolute silence, but Jessica noticed his hands trembled slightly as he held the fork. When he got up to leave, he stopped at the kitchen door without turning around. "This is exactly how my mother used to make it." The words hung in the air after he left, and Jessica had to lean on the counter to keep from collapsing. The pregnancy made her emotions even more intense, and hearing Benjamin mention Eleanor in that way made her feel as if the past was coming back to both embrace and suffocate her at the same time. That afternoon, while Jessica was organizing the pantry, she found a small wooden box hidden behind the spice jars. Inside it was a yellowed envelope with her name written in Eleanor's careful handwriting. Her hands trembled as she opened the letter. "My dear Jessica, if you are reading this, it means my time here has come to an end and you have finally found the courage to come take care of my boy as you promised. Benjamin will need a lot of affection, my dear. He grew up closing his heart to the world after well, you know what happened. The recipes you learned from me are the key to opening that door again. Don't give up on him, even when he tries to push you away. He is afraid of losing the people he loves. With all my affection, Eleanor." Jessica read the letter 3 times before she could stop crying. Eleanor had been like a second mother to her, a constant presence during her difficult teenage years in the Queens neighborhood of New York City. When Eleanor began working for the Harrison family, Jessica was just a 15-year-old girl who helped on weekends to earn some extra money. Eleanor always spoke of Benjamin with so much love, telling how he was smart but lonely, how he suffered from his parents' constant absences due to work travels. Jessica grew up hearing stories about the boy who ate secretly in the kitchen for company, about how he cried silently when his parents forgot to call on his birthday. Now, 5 years after Eleanor's sudden departure, Jessica was there to fulfill a promise she had made without fully understanding its weight. But the circumstances of her own life had changed drastically. The unplanned pregnancy, the end of the relationship, the difficulty of finding a job in her condition, everything had converged to that moment. In the following days, Jessica observed Benjamin with increasing attention. He maintained a rigid routine, woke up at 5 in the morning, drank only black coffee, worked until late, and dined alone at a huge table that could seat 12 people. He never had social visitors, only work meetings that took place in the mansion's office. She began preparing the meals exactly as Eleanor had taught, using the spices in just the right measure, letting the flavors develop for the proper time. With each meal, she noticed that Benjamin ate more slowly, sometimes closing his eyes as if trying to remember something. One night, as Jessica was finishing cleaning the kitchen, she heard strange noises coming from the library. Curious and concerned, she approached quietly and saw Benjamin asleep slumped over the table, surrounded by papers and with the computer still on. There were empty bottles of sleeping pills scattered on the table, and he was murmuring incomprehensible words in his restless sleep. Jessica hesitated for a moment, but her caring nature overcame her shyness. She went to get a blanket and returned to cover him carefully. Benjamin woke up startled by the touch. "What are you doing here?" he asked, confused and irritated. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrison. I saw that you had fallen asleep here and thought—" "I don't need anyone to take care of me," he interrupted, standing up abruptly, "and I especially don't want your pity." "It's not pity," Jessica replied firmly, holding the blanket to her chest. "It's care. Eleanor taught me that caring for people isn't pity. It's love." Benjamin stopped mid-movement, as if he had been punched. "How do you know her name?" "I never mentioned—" Jessica realized she had said too much, but there was no turning back now. "Eleanor Jenkins was like a mother to me when I was a teenager. I used to help her here on weekends." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Benjamin stared at her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as if he were trying to find some lost memory in her face. "You knew Eleanor," he repeated slowly, "and you came to work here by chance?" "It wasn't by chance," admitted Jessica, knowing that lying would be worse. "I promised her I would take care of you if it ever became necessary." "When did you make that promise?" "The day she left." Benjamin stepped back as if Jessica were an apparition. "You were there at the hospital?" "I was with her until the end." The revelation hit Benjamin like a slap. He remembered that terrible day, how he had arrived at the hospital too late, how Eleanor had already passed without him being able to say goodbye. For 5 years he had carried the guilt of not being present at the most important moment. Did she suffer?" he asked with a broken voice. "No," Jessica lied gently. "She spoke of you until the end, said you were the son she never had, and that her greatest fear was leaving you alone in the world." Benjamin collapsed into the library armchair, hiding his face in his hands. Jessica approached slowly and sat in the chair beside him, her hand instinctively stroking her belly. "Why didn't you come to me before?" he asked without looking at her. "Because I was too young, had my own problems to solve, and because I knew you needed time to accept her loss." "And now you come here pregnant, without telling me the truth, to fulfill a promise I never asked for." Benjamin's question carried more pain than anger, but it still hurt Jessica. "I came because I need the work, yes, but also because I promised, and Eleanor always kept her promises." Benjamin finally looked at her, and Jessica saw in his eyes the same loneliness Eleanor always described. "Do you think she would be proud to see what I've become? A man who works until he collapses, who takes sleeping pills, who eats alone at a table for 12. I think she would be sad to see you haven't learned to take care of yourself, but proud because you became a good and successful man. How can you know if I'm a good man? You barely know me." "Because you kept her kitchen utensils, Because you eat slowly the recipes I make as if you're savoring memories. Because even angry with me, you didn't fire me when you discovered the truth. Benjamin stood up and walked to the library window. Did she talk about me to you when you were little? Always. She said you were smart but shy, that you liked to read hidden under the kitchen table, that you made excuses to stay near her when your parents traveled. I did do that, he admitted with a melancholy smile. The kitchen was the only place in the house that felt like a real home. Eleanor said you had a huge heart but were afraid to use it. What else did she say about me? Jessica hesitated before answering. That you would be a wonderful father someday, if you could overcome your fear of loving. The words hit Benjamin unexpectedly. He looked at Jessica's belly, and then into her eyes. And your baby's father. Where is he? He's not here. When he found out about the pregnancy, he said he wasn't ready to be a father and disappeared. I'm sorry. Don't be. Eleanor always said that sometimes life removes the wrong people from our path to make room for the right ones. Benjamin sat down again, this time closer to Jessica. Are you afraid of raising your child alone? I'm very afraid, but I also have a lot of hope. Eleanor taught me that love is enough to overcome any difficulty. She was right about many things. Benjamin agreed. But she was wrong about me being a good father. I can barely take care of myself. Maybe that's why she brought us back together, so we could learn together. Benjamin looked at Jessica with an expression she couldn't interpret. Together? She left a letter for me in the kitchen. It said the recipes were the key to opening your heart again, and that I shouldn't give up on you even when you tried to push me away. Eleanor was always smarter than all of us, Benjamin sighed. And more manipulative, too. For the first time since they'd met, Jessica saw Benjamin smile genuinely. She used to laugh a lot when she was planning something, Jessica remembered. She said sometimes you need to push people in the right direction, even if they resist. And you think this is the right direction? You taking care of me and me... What? Taking care of you and your baby? I think Eleanor saw something we haven't been able to see yet. Benjamin stood up again, but this time extended his hand to help Jessica up. It's late and you're pregnant. You need to rest. Thank you. When they reached the main hall, Benjamin stopped at the foot of the staircase. Jessica. Yes? Tomorrow I'd like you to tell me more about Eleanor's last moments and about what you were like as a little girl. Of course. And, thank you for coming. Even though I still don't fully understand why. Jessica went up to the room assigned to her on the second floor of the mansion, feeling for the first time since arriving that perhaps Eleanor really knew what she was doing when she planted that seed of promise in the heart of a frightened teenager. In the following days, the dynamic between Benjamin and Jessica changed subtly. He began appearing in the kitchen during meal preparations, first just observing, then asking questions about ingredients and techniques. Jessica noticed he was genuinely interested in learning, as if each recipe were a piece of a puzzle he was trying to put together. Eleanor used to let me help when I was little, he said one morning, watching Jessica prepare a shepherd's pie with dried beef. But my mother said the kitchen wasn't a place for boys. Eleanor thought differently. She said cooking is an act of love and everyone should know how to show love that way. My mother showed love by buying expensive gifts, said Benjamin bitterly. I never understood why I preferred the little cakes Eleanor made over things that came wrapped in gold paper. Because you knew the difference between bought affection and affection made with your own hands. Benjamin watched Jessica's hands seasoning the meat, noticing the delicacy with which she handled each ingredient. Are your parents still alive? Asked Jessica, breaking the contemplative silence. Yes, they live in Europe now, say the climate here isn't good for their health. We talk on the phone once a month. They always ask about business. And about your personal life. They stopped asking about that a long time ago. I think they've given up on seeing me married with children. Jessica stopped stirring the pot for a moment. Why did you never marry? Eleanor always said you were a handsome and successful man. Benjamin laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Because every time I get close to someone, I'm afraid that person will leave like everyone else. It's easier to be alone. Eleanor didn't leave because she wanted to. I know. But the result is the same, isn't it? Jessica put her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move. Sometimes people come into our lives exactly when we need them, even if it's not in the way we expected. Benjamin looked at her belly with curiosity. May I ask how many months along you are? 6.5. It's a girl. Have you chosen a name yet? Not yet. I'm waiting to meet her to see what name suits her. Eleanor always said that babies come into the world knowing who they are, and that it's up to the parents to discover and respect that identity. She was truly wise, agreed Jessica, smiling. And are you afraid of being a mother? I'm very afraid, but I'm also excited. Eleanor used to say that fear and hope are sibling feelings, and that one doesn't exist without the other. Benjamin became thoughtful for a moment. Do you think she would be happy to know you're going to be a mother? I think she would be happy to know that I'm going to raise my daughter with the same love she gave me when I needed it most. What was your family like when you were little? Jessica sighed, stirring the shepherd's pie with slower movements. My mother worked very hard to support us alone. My father left when I was 10. It was difficult, but my mother did her best. It was she who took me to work with Eleanor on weekends so I could have a strong female role model. And your mother, how did she react to your pregnancy? She passed away 2 years ago from cancer. She never got to know about the baby. Benjamin stopped chopping the onion. I'm so sorry. It must be hard to go through this alone. That's why I think Eleanor was right about us meeting again. Maybe we all need a family. All of us. You, me, and her, said Jessica, pointing to her belly. Benjamin looked into Jessica's eyes, and she saw something changing in his expression. Do you really believe that Eleanor planned all this? I believe she knew our hearts better than we did ourselves, and that she knew that one day we would need each other. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. That afternoon, while Jessica rested in her room, Benjamin locked himself in his office and did something he hadn't done in years. He called his secretary and cancelled all his meetings for the rest of the week. Then he went to the library and opened a secret drawer where he kept some of Eleanor's belongings that he had found in her room after she passed. Among the items was a diary with a worn leather cover. Benjamin had never had the courage to open it, but now he felt he needed to better understand Eleanor's plans. The first pages talked about the house's routine, written down recipes, shopping lists, but as he advanced, the content became more personal. Benjamin is becoming more and more withdrawn. Today he turned 17 and didn't even want a party. He prefers to stay alone in his room reading. I talked to Jessica about this. She said she's shy too, but that she found in me someone to trust. Maybe one day they can be that person for each other? Benjamin read the entry several times. Eleanor had been thinking about bringing him and Jessica together since they were teenagers. He kept reading. Jessica is 18 now, but she still visits me when she can. She's a special girl, strong like her mother, but with a sweet heart. Today she helped me make Benjamin's cornbread and asked if one day she could cook for her own family. I said yes, that she would be a wonderful mother. She blushed and said she wasn't even dating. I replied that true love always comes when we least expect it. Tears began to blur Benjamin's vision. Eleanor had indeed planned this for years, patiently waiting for time to bring the right opportunity. But the entry that moved him the most was almost at the end of the diary. I feel my time is running out. The doctor confirmed what I already suspected. I won't get to see Benjamin grown and happy as I always dreamed, but I have faith that Jessica will keep our promise. She has the right heart to care for my boy, and he has the capacity for love that she'll need. I just hope that when they meet again, they'll have the courage to accept what God has prepared for them. Benjamin closed the diary and cried as he hadn't cried since Eleanor's passing. She had seen a family in them long before they were able to see any possibility, and more than that, she had believed so strongly in that vision that she dedicated her final thoughts to making it reality. When Jessica came down to prepare dinner, she found Benjamin in the kitchen, sitting on the counter with Eleanor's diary in his hands. "Did you read it?" she asked, immediately recognizing the object. "I did. She'd been planning this much longer than we imagined." "And how do you feel knowing this?" Benjamin put the diary on the counter and looked at Jessica. Confused, emotional, a bit manipulated to be honest, but also hopeful for the first time in a long while. Hopeful about what? About the possibility of not having to spend the rest of my life alone. Jessica moved closer to him, leaning against the counter beside him. "You're not suggesting we should get married just because Eleanor wanted it, are you?" Benjamin laughed, and this time it was a genuine laugh. "No, I'm not that naive. But I am suggesting that maybe we should give ourselves a chance to really get to know each other, without rush, without pressure. Like two adults who respect the memory of someone special, but who also respect their own feelings." And what would that mean in practice? It would mean you don't need to worry about a place to live until the baby's born, or after that. It would mean I'd like to learn how to be useful to you and your daughter. And it would mean we could discover together whether Eleanor was right about our hearts. Jessica felt the baby move vigorously, as if approving of the conversation. "She's moving a lot," she said, putting her hand on her belly. May I feel?" asked Benjamin timidly. Jessica took his hand and placed it on her belly. At that very moment, the baby gave a strong kick. "Wow," whispered Benjamin, his eyes wide. "She's strong." Eleanor always said babies know when they're being awaited with love. Benjamin kept his hand on Jessica's belly a while longer, feeling the child's movements. "Jessica?" "Yes?" "I've never had a real family. I don't know if I'll know how to do this right." "Nobody does, Benjamin. We learn by doing, by making mistakes, by trying again. Eleanor taught me that family isn't about perfection, it's about presence. And would you be willing to teach me, to be patient with me while I learn?" Jessica looked into his eyes and saw sincerity, vulnerability, and something she hadn't expected to find: hope. "Yes, but on one condition." "What?" "You have to promise you'll tell me when you're scared or unsure instead of pulling away. Eleanor used to say problems only grow in the dark. I promise. And do you promise not to give up on me if I'm slow to learn?" "I promise." They sealed the agreement with a careful hug, and for the first time since arriving at that house, Jessica felt she was exactly where she needed to be. During the following weeks, Benjamin began actively participating in the household routine. He learned to make breakfast for Jessica, insisted on accompanying her to medical appointments, and turned one of the spare rooms into a nursery. But most importantly, he had stopped working late hours and started having dinner at the table with Jessica every evening. Eleanor would be happy to see the table being used for conversation, not just for eating, Jessica commented one night as they finished dinner. "She always said the best conversations happen around the table," Benjamin remembered. "But I never understood what she meant." "And now do you understand?" "Now I understand it's easier to open your heart when you're doing something simple and everyday, like sharing a meal." Jessica smiled and placed her hand on her belly, where the baby was particularly active that night. "She's kicking a lot today. I think she's eager to see the world." "Or to get to know you properly," said Benjamin, moving closer to feel the movements. "Benjamin?" "Yes?" "I was thinking about names, and I'd like your opinion." "Of course. What names have you thought of?" "Eleanor. I'd like to name her Eleanor, in honor of the one who brought us back to each other." Benjamin felt his eyes fill with tears. "Are you sure? It's a big responsibility to carry the name of someone so special." "I'm sure, and I hope she grows up knowing she inherited the name of a woman who believed in the power of love to transform lives." Eleanor would approve. She always said names carry people's destinies. "Then it's decided, Eleanor Miller Harrison." Benjamin stopped stroking Jessica's belly. "Harrison? But Eleanor used to say family is who chooses to stay close, not just who shares the same blood, and you chose to stay close to us." "Jessica, you don't need to say anything right now. Just think about what it means for you to have a real family for the first time." Benjamin stood up and walked to the dining room window, looking out at the garden that Eleanor loved to tend so much. "I always thought I didn't deserve a family because I couldn't make my own parents stay." "Your parents didn't leave because of you, Benjamin. They drifted away because they didn't know how to form real bonds. Eleanor told me they were good people, but they were afraid of intimacy." "And you're not afraid of getting involved with someone who inherited that difficulty?" "I'm afraid of many things, but I'm not afraid of you because I see how hard you try to be different from them. Benjamin returned to Jessica's side. What if I can't do it? What if I end up failing as a father, like they failed with me? Then I'll be here to remind you that making mistakes is part of learning, and our daughter will grow up knowing she's loved, even when we make mistakes. Our daughter, Benjamin repeated, trying out the words. That sounds right. It sounds right to me, too. That night, while Jessica slept, Benjamin stayed awake making plans. He wanted Eleanor's arrival to be perfect, for her to be born into an environment full of love and preparation. But more than that, he wanted to become the man who would deserve to carry the title of father. The next day, Benjamin surprised Jessica with a proposal. I'd like you to teach me all the recipes that Eleanor taught you. All of them? That's a lot of recipes, Benjamin. All of them. I want our daughter to grow up eating the same food that connected me to you, that connected you to Eleanor, and that will connect our whole family through the generations. That will take months. We have a whole lifetime. Jessica smiled and picked up the recipe book she had brought with her. Then let's start with Eleanor's favorite dessert, flan. Why start with dessert? Because Eleanor said life gets sweeter when we start with the good things. They spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen, Benjamin patiently learning each step of the recipe, Jessica gently correcting his mistakes, both laughing when he burned the sugar on his first attempt. When the flan was finally ready, they tasted it together. Is it like Eleanor's? Asked Benjamin eagerly. It's better because it was made with family love. Would Eleanor be proud? Eleanor is proud, Jessica corrected. I feel her presence every time we're together in the kitchen. Benjamin embraced Jessica from behind, placing his hands on her belly. Thank you for giving me a second chance to have a family. Thank you for giving me a place to raise our daughter surrounded by love. The baby moved vigorously between them, as if approving the conversation. I think she's saying it's already time to be born, Jessica joked. There's still 2.5 months left. Babies have their own schedule. Eleanor always said they arrive when they're ready to be loved the way they deserve. And do you think we're ready already? I think we're learning to be ready, and that's what matters. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 2 months later, on a sunny December morning, Jessica began feeling the first contractions while preparing breakfast. Benjamin, who had learned to recognize all her signs of discomfort, immediately noticed something was different. Jessica, are you all right? I think the time has come, she said, holding onto the kitchen counter. Benjamin went into complete panic. For months he had theoretically prepared for that moment, but in practice he felt completely lost. What do I do? Do I call the doctor? Do I call the hospital? Do I call a taxi? Benjamin, breathe, said Jessica, laughing even in the middle of a contraction. Grab the bag that's ready in my room and let's go to the hospital calmly. Calmly? How can you talk about calm at a time like this? Because Eleanor taught me that babies feel what mothers feel, and I want our daughter to come into the world feeling peace, not desperation. Benjamin took a deep breath, remembered all the conversations they'd had about trust and partnership, and took control of the situation. He grabbed the bag, helped Jessica into the car, and drove to the hospital carefully but with determination. During labor, Benjamin never left Jessica's side for even a minute. He held her hand, wiped her sweat, whispered words of encouragement, and for the first time in his life felt truly useful to someone. She's almost here, said the doctor. One more push, Jessica. I can do it, said Jessica, looking into Benjamin's eyes. We can do it. And then, at 3:47 p.m. on a December afternoon, Eleanor Miller Harrison came into the world with a strong, healthy cry. Benjamin cried as much as the baby, holding her tiny hand between his fingers. She's perfect, he whispered, just like the grandmother she never met, but who brought her to us, said Jessica, watching Benjamin fall instantly in love with the child. The first months with the baby were challenging, but also revealing. Benjamin discovered he had infinite patience to care for Eleanor, waking up in the early hours to help with feedings, singing lullabies he made up on the spot, and talking to the baby as if she understood every word. Jessica watched with emotion as Benjamin had transformed into a dedicated and caring father, very different from the examples he'd had in his own childhood. She saw in him the same determination that Eleanor had always described, now applied to caring for the family he had chosen. "Eleanor was right about you," Jessica said one night, as they watched the baby sleeping in her crib. "About what?" "About you having a huge heart. You just needed to find the right people to love it. And you were right about family being about presence. I never understood what that meant until now. And now you understand. Now I understand that family isn't about blood or documents. It's about choosing to stay, about caring, about loving, even when it's difficult." Jessica moved closer to Benjamin and kissed him softly. "I love you," she said for the first time since they had met again. "I love you too," he replied. "And I love our daughter, and I love the family we built together." Eleanor knew this would happen from the start. "Eleanor was wiser than all of us," agreed Benjamin. 6 months after Eleanor was born, Benjamin proposed to Jessica in the simplest and most sincere way possible, while they were preparing dinner together in the kitchen where it all began. "Jessica." "Yes?" "Would you marry me?" She stopped seasoning the salad and looked at him. "Why?" "Because I can't imagine my life without you and our daughter. Because every day you teach me something new about love and family. And because I want to spend the rest of my life returning all the affection you've given me." "And are you sure it's not just gratitude?" "I'm sure it started as gratitude, but it turned into true love. The kind of love that grows every day, that overcomes difficulties, that builds a future together." Jessica looked at little Eleanor, who was sleeping peacefully in the stroller next to the kitchen table. "And what does our daughter gain from this? She gains a father who will love her unconditionally, who will be present for every important moment, and who will teach her that family is the most precious thing there is." "Then yes. Yes, I will marry you." They married 3 months later, in a small, intimate ceremony in the mansion's garden. Jessica wore the wedding dress that had belonged to Eleanor, found in a suitcase stored in the attic. Little Eleanor was present throughout, sleeping peacefully in the arms of one, then the other. During the ceremony, Benjamin gave a speech that moved everyone present. Eleanor Jenkins taught us that true love sometimes needs time to blossom, but when it does, it forever changes every life it touches. Jessica taught me that family is about choice, about presence, about mutual care. And our daughter is teaching me that being a father is the greatest privilege a man can have. I promise I will spend the rest of my life honoring these lessons and caring for the 2 women who gave meaning to my existence. Jessica replied with tears in her eyes. Benjamin taught me that it's never too late to start over, that the past can be healed by the present, and that family isn't just who gave us life, but who chooses to live life with us. I promise we will raise our daughter surrounded by the same love that brought us here, and we will honor the memory of Eleanor Jenkins by building the family she always dreamed of for us. When they exchanged rings, little Eleanor woke up and gave a beautiful smile, as if approving the entire ceremony. "She's smiling," whispered Benjamin emotionally. "Eleanor is smiling through her," said Jessica. Years passed, and the Harrison family grew not only in love, but also in size. Eleanor became a cheerful and smart girl who loved spending time in the kitchen with her parents, learning the recipes that connected her family through generations. The mansion, which once echoed empty, was now always full of life, laughter, lively conversations, and the constant aroma of food made with love. The 12-seat table finally had its reason for existing, often occupied by friends, Benjamin's co-workers, neighbors, and other families that Jessica and Benjamin had helped over the years. Benjamin became a more humane and generous businessman, using part of his fortune to create an assistance program for single mothers, inspired by Jessica's own experience. Jessica opened a small cooking school in one of the property's pavilions, where she taught not only recipes, but also the values that Eleanor had passed on to her. One special afternoon, when Eleanor turned 5, she asked a question that surprised her parents. "Daddy, Mommy, who is Grandma Eleanor that you always talk about?" Benjamin and Jessica exchanged glances, knowing the moment had come to tell their daughter the full story. "Grandma Eleanor was a very special woman who took care of Daddy when he was little, and who taught Mommy how to cook," began Jessica. And she knew that one day Daddy and Mommy would meet and form a happy family, continued Benjamin. Is that why you gave me her name? Exactly. So you always remember that it was her love that brought our family together. I wish I could have met her, said the girl seriously. You know her through all the recipes we make together, through all the stories we tell, and through all the love that exists in our home, explained Jessica. And through your own generous heart, which is just like hers, added Benjamin. So she's still with us? She will always be with us, the parents said in unison. That night, after Eleanor went to sleep, Benjamin and Jessica sat in the garden they now tended together, watching the stars and reflecting on the journey that had brought them there. Do you think Eleanor imagined it would be like this? Asked Benjamin. I think she imagined something even better, because the love she planted between us grew beyond any expectation. And are you happy with the life we've built? I'm happier than I ever thought possible. And you? I've learned that happiness isn't a destination, it's a path. And I'm happy to be walking it with you two. Eleanor would be proud. Eleanor is proud, corrected Benjamin, using the words Jessica always said. How can you be so sure? Because every time our daughter smiles, I see Eleanor's smile. Every time you cook with love, I feel her presence in the kitchen. And every time we solve a problem by talking instead of running away, I know she's guiding us. Jessica snuggled into Benjamin's arm, watching the soft light coming from their daughter's bedroom window. What do you think the future holds for our family? I think the future holds everything we're willing to build together. More children, if we want. More stories, certainly. More love, always. More children? Repeated Jessica in surprise. Only if you want to, but I'd love to give our Eleanor some siblings. Eleanor would like to have siblings too. Really? How do you know? Because yesterday she asked me when her little brother was coming. Benjamin stood up excitedly. And what did you tell her? That when God and Daddy and Mommy thought the time was right. And what do you think? Is it the right time? Jessica smiled and pulled Benjamin back onto the garden bench. I think our family is ready to grow once more. Then let's give another gift to Eleanor Jenkins. Let's continue the family she always dreamed of for us. They kissed under the stars, in the same garden where they had married, surrounded by the love that a wise woman had planted years before and that now bloomed in all its fullness. 2 years later, Benjamin and Jessica welcomed their second child, a boy they named Michael, in honor of the angel who brought good news. Michael was born with his father's blue eyes and his mother's sweet smile, and Eleanor proved to be a dedicated and caring big sister. The Harrison family was now complete, united not only by present love, but also by gratitude for the past love that had made it all possible. The kitchen of the mansion remained the heart of the home, where Eleanor Jenkins' recipes were prepared with the same care as always, now by the small hands of the children who were learning not just how to cook, but also the values of generosity, patience, and unconditional love. On a special afternoon, 5 years after Michael's birth, Jessica found Benjamin in the library, reading Eleanor's diary to the children. And then Grandma Eleanor wrote, I hope when my boy and my girl meet again, they'll have the courage to accept what God has prepared for them. Benjamin read with an emotional voice. Daddy, did you have courage? Little Eleanor asked. We did, sweetheart, and it was the best decision we ever made. And was Grandma Eleanor happy? Michael wanted to know. Grandma Eleanor was very happy. So much that she sent you two to complete our family, Jessica answered, joining the group. Mummy, do you think Grandma Eleanor is watching us now? Eleanor asked. I'm sure she is. And I know she's smiling seeing how our family has grown with love. And you know what else? Benjamin added. Every day when we wake up and choose to care for each other, when we share our meals with joy, when we talk about our problems instead of running from them, we're honoring the greatest gift Grandma Eleanor gave us. What gift was that? The children asked together. The gift of believing that love always finds a way to bring the right people together at the right time. That evening, after the children went to sleep, Benjamin and Jessica gathered in the kitchen to prepare the special dinner they had planned. The first dish she had cooked for him years before, the chicken stew with okra that had changed their lives forever. As they cooked side by side, moving in perfect harmony after so many years of practice, they reflected on the extraordinary journey that had taken them from loneliness to family fulfillment. "Benjamin?" "Yes, my love. Thank you for trusting me when I was still a pregnant stranger who showed up at your door. Thank you for keeping a promise you weren't even obligated to keep." "I was obligated. Eleanor saved my life when I was young and lost. Taking care of you was my way of returning that love. And taking care of you and the children is my way of honoring that love every day. Do you think we made it? Creating the family Eleanor dreamed for us." Benjamin stopped stirring the stew and looked around the house. On the walls, photos of happy family moments. On the table, plates waiting for the meal they would soon share. Upstairs, 2 children sleeping safe and loved. "I think we created something even better than she dreamed, because the love we planted here will keep growing through our children, their children, and all the generations to come." And you know what's most beautiful about all this? What? That our story started with a cook nobody wanted to hire and turned into a family that will never be apart. "The most special cook in the world," Benjamin corrected, kissing Jessica's forehead. "Who was lucky enough to find an employer willing to learn that home isn't a place, it's a feeling, and who had the wisdom of an extraordinary woman to guide us here." They finished cooking in contemplative silence, each lost in thoughts of gratitude. When dinner was ready, they called the children and gathered around the big table that was now the center of their family life. "Shall we say our Thanksgiving prayer?" Jessica suggested, as they did every evening. "Thank you for our family," little Eleanor began. "Thank you for our home," Michael continued. "Thank you for our love," Benjamin said. "And thank you to Grandma Eleanor, who brought us to each other," Jessica finished. "Amen," they all said together. As they ate dinner, the children told about their day's adventures. Benjamin shared news from work and Jessica talked about the new students at the cooking school. It was an ordinary, everyday conversation, full of the small details that make up family life. But for Benjamin and Jessica, every dinner was a silent miracle, a constant reminder that true love has the power to heal the past, transform the present, and build a future full of hope. After dinner, while tidying up the kitchen together as they always did, Jessica found an old letter among the recipes she was organizing. It was a letter she herself had written to Eleanor years before, when she was still a teenager. "What is that?" asked Benjamin, noticing the emotion on his wife's face. "A letter I wrote to Eleanor when I was 17. I had forgotten I kept it here." "What did you write?" Jessica opened the letter carefully and read it aloud. "Dear Eleanor, thank you for teaching me that cooking is an act of love. I hope that one day I can have a family to cook for with the same care you show. And I hope to be strong and generous like you. With love, Jessica." "You achieved all that and much more," said Benjamin, hugging her from behind. "We did it. Together." Eleanor knew we would make it. How could she be so sure? Because she saw our hearts better than we did, and because she believed in the power of love to overcome any obstacle. Jessica folded the letter again and placed it with the recipes. "I'll keep this to show the children when they grow up, so they understand how dreams can come true in ways we never imagined. And so they understand that sometimes angels appear disguised as ordinary people who dedicate their lives to caring for others." Was Eleanor really an angel? Eleanor was human, but she was the kind of human who chooses to live like an angel, caring, protecting, connecting hearts that need to find their way to each other. That night, after the whole family had gone to sleep, Benjamin did something that had become a personal tradition. He went to the kitchen, lit a candle next to the photo of Eleanor Jenkins that he kept on a small shelf, and talked to her as if she were present. "Eleanor, another day for the family you created for us. The children are growing up strong and happy. Jessica continues to be the most generous woman I have ever known. And I learned to be the man you always believed I could be. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for planting seeds of love that continue to bloom every day. Rest in peace, knowing that your mission was perfectly fulfilled." He blew out the candle and went upstairs to the bedroom, where he found Jessica reading a book in bed. "Who were you talking to downstairs?" she asked with a loving smile. "To Eleanor, telling her about our day." "And what do you think she would say?" "I think she would say she's proud, but that the work isn't over yet." "What work?" "The work of loving, of caring, of building a family strong enough to be an example for other people who are still finding their place in the world. Just like Eleanor herself was an example for us." "Exactly. True love is like that. It multiplies, it never diminishes." Jessica closed the book and snuggled into Benjamin's arm. "Are you happy with the life we have?" "I'm more than happy. I'm fulfilled. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I should be, with exactly the people I should love." "And the future? Does it still scare you?" "The future excites me, because I know we will face it together, as a family, with the solid foundation that Eleanor helped us build. I love you, Benjamin Harrison. I love you, Jessica Harrison. And we love our children, and we are loved by them. And all of this thanks to an extraordinary woman who could see what even we couldn't see, Eleanor Jenkins, the woman who united 3 lonely hearts into a family full of love. They slept in each other's arms, as they did every night, surrounded by the peace that only comes when you're certain you're living exactly the life you should be living." End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story of love and family? Were you able to feel moved along with Benjamin and Jessica? Leave your comment telling us which part touched your heart the most, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.